For those who may have missed a little session summary I gave, today we will be talking about the topic of hiring funnel retention and how to improve yours. So we will get into improving hiring funnel conversation rates, offer acceptance, time to hire. So if one of these topics is a headache for you right now, you're in the correct room. But before going started, I would like to introduce myself first. I'm Aiive and I work as Customer Success Manager at eduMe, supporting the North American customers. I've been working in the CS for many years. I'm based in Los Angeles, but I moved from the Netherlands, as you can probably hear, a few years ago. On a daily basis, I partner with many Workday customers as well as eduMe's largest enterprise customers. So my role is to advise customers on how to maximize the value they get from eduMe and achieve the highest possible return on their investment. It's been fantastic to work with customers throughout their different journeys and to see how their learning strategies evolve over time. And one important part of that journey is the recruiting experience, which is exactly what we will be covering today. But before going there, a quick icebreaker. I always love interactive sessions, and at eduMe we work with many frontline industries. And that's basically meaning anyone whose workforce isn't sitting behind the desk, transportation, logistics, retail, etc. But I would love to know more about who's here in the room with me today, especially because the tips I will be sharing today are industry agnostic. So it doesn't really matter what background you're in. You will take something useful out of today anyway, but then maybe I can share some best practices or some tips based on your industry. So please feel free to share in the chat what your industry you're in and what your main hiring struggle is today. No wrong answers. Let's see. We have government, fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Higher education, love it. Financial services, and we struggle with screening candidates. Thank you, Sarah. I've heard that one many, many times before. State government. Well, thank you so much for your responses. I have one of my team members in the chat, by the way, so even if there's a question in the meantime or anything popping up, please always just let me know. Okay, on to the session agenda for today. So we're going to be talking about the topic problems first. Why is candidate dropout happening in the first place? And then the second part of the presentation is going to be focusing on what to do about this, stage by stage. This very much comes from personal experience with clients, customers, troubleshooting problems such as these with eduMe customers. So there are tried and tested strategies, and hopefully you've heard of some of them, and some might be new. At the end, we will be sharing an example to wrap things up on one of the things that I work with a client and tackle some of those issues. First things first, why is the funnel leaking in the first place and why are candidates dropping out? Before we dive in, I was honestly a little bit shocked about this number. 94 out of 100 applicants who view a posting decide not to apply. And I would love to hear from you why you think this is. Has your business seen any of this? And please feel free to chat, put your answer in the chat again. I would love to hear from your perspective. Oh, nice. Some other responses. Also struggle with candidate dropouts. They don't really want to work. Too many questions. Okay, boring job description, salary, fantastic. I think we will be, well, you're in the perfect room. We'll be covering this in a little bit. But thank you for sharing all of this. Let's talk about the three main reasons on why the funnel is leaking. Reason one, too much friction. Friction is what eliminates people before they've even started. SHRM found that an average Fortune 500 job application required 51 clicks and took just under 5 minutes to complete. Doesn't sound too bad to me, right? Except 92% of people who clicked apply never finished. So in this scenario, it was probably the clicks more than the time to complete that was the issue. But in general, pre-application quits, area results of bad user design. An example of bad user design could be having more than one identity verification flow, asking them to manually fill in their email address more than once, or, for example, your application goes beyond simple form filing and making additional requests. This could be including more than one pre-screener question, like showcasing a recent project or situation, or this could be uploading a document like a cover letter. With each additional ask of this nature, there's a 70% drop in applicants, another huge stat. So a long form is deterrent, but how long is too long? Here's the number that should stick with you. Applicants under 5 minutes or applications under 5 minutes convert 245% higher than ones over 15 minutes, with under 5 minutes seeing 12.5% conversion and those over 15 seeing just 3.6 conversion. This was also further validated on other results where 2/3 of candidates expect to spend less than 20 minutes on an application. So these numbers even become less surprising when you factor in the device, which people are increasingly using to apply from, cell phones. It's basically a form if it feels hard on a desktop. Imagine how it feels on a phone or on a smaller screen. So basically, the simpler, faster, and more user-friendly your process, the more you will get out of the funnel. Number 2 is generic communication. At the same time as a clunky application form, the spec itself could be putting applicants off. This is a communicational failure. Your company might be a fantastic place to work, but if the spec and post-application communications fail to capture this, the candidate won't even get the message. So if the application already asks a lot, the spec must work a little harder. Do a good job of selling the role and your company. A few examples of a bad job description, and that might be for many people in the room. So thank you for your sharing, your challenges. But one of them might be read as generic. This kind of spec sounds like any other spec that might read. There is nothing unique about it that forms positive association towards your company. Ask yourself, could you swap your company's name out of this posting and nobody would notice? That's a test. Or another one could be failing to address a candidate's what's in it for me, their personal motivations. This could be nothing expressing about what kind of person would thrive in your role or environment. Some candidates are more environment oriented, where, for example, other candidates are more compensation oriented. So also focus on salary, pension packages, wellness benefits. So if your benefit section is just a footnote, you might have lost these individuals already. The last option here would be to include a process that's defined from the start. Without detail on what to expect post-submission, stages broken down and shared up front, they might be gone. This goes linked in setting candidate expectations and making a process feel that is a bit more manageable. So at the end, copywriting is your biggest ally here. Consider the spec as marketing copy, not paperwork. Leave some sort of impression that makes them think, wow, this organization is the place for me. All the things that I just mentioned mainly refers to pre-application, but the same advice extends post-application as well. All communications should be audited. For example, your email sequences. How many emails get sent and when? Are they personalized? How does each email sound and reflect your company, its values, its culture? Is the experience working there? Or is it what you want? Let's move on to the third and final main reason driving drop-off, and that means slow or unclear communication. We all understand delays happen. It's understandable if you want to take your time if you have 2 great candidates. You might have a hiring manager on vacation. Scheduling is proving difficult, or perhaps you had a tiering strategy, but this needed to change because you want to re-engage a second interviewer before opening up the application again. So you know that the communication might be on its way, but the candidate sees none of this. They only see silence and inconsistency. Candidates can be loyal to a point, especially if something about the role of your organization is perceived as really competitive. But even with the most compelling opportunities, when momentum halts, attention gets diverted. So going silent means perceived ghosting. 78% say they've been ghosted at least once during the process, where 77% of candidates expect status at every stage. So whatever the reason for delay, the data shows that candidates stay on the market just 10 days before accepting another offer or before putting another process in motion. And that's your full window. Like with any generic communication, ghosting shapes brand perception. So 48% are less likely to recommend you as an employer after a bad scheduling experience. People want to feel at top of their mind, even if they know they're being considered against others. The moment someone feels forgotten by your company, even if you know they're still under consideration, it's the moment they lost interest. So while one applicant might be less affected by silence than the next, by over communicating, you don't risk losing anyone. So we've spent a little bit of time on the problems, but what are some more concrete things you can implement? We will run through this by the funnel stages as reflected in Workday Recruiting, so hopefully it hits home. But I'm curious, before going there, I work with many clients over different industries, and some of the problems tend to differ from company to company, but there is definitely a pattern. Like if involved in high volume hiring, as in on-demand or gig roles, cost per hire and driving that down is something that is always on top of mind. So I'm curious, what is your priority number one for you today? And what is a metric you are least happy with and most keen to improve? Love to see your responses in the chat again. Feedback. Oh, I see. Alex, thank you also for sharing your information there. Creating an account can be burdensome. No details about compensation packages are fantastic. Candidate satisfaction. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Alex, again. And time to hire. Nice, Carrie. And time and stage. Okay. Kind of similar all. That's also great to see that we at least have the same challenges and that we're aligning with this. Guest turnover, absolutely. I see this a lot with customers as well. Also something that we will be covering in a little bit. Thank you all for sharing. And please continue to keep sharing. I might not look immediately, but definitely take another look as well. Next up to the funnel before we zoom in. So people enter at review. If they're viable, they move into the interview phase and then the offer, assuming they accept the offer, and then they will move into the onboarding phase. Or if you're sharing any pre-first day communications with them, we would actually call this pre-boarding because they have not yet started with the first day, but you're reaching out anyway. And yes, they can still drop at every single one of these stages. The rate at which this happens varies by industry, but basically our goal is to reduce that leakage. So we need to identify what the leading causes are at each point. If we take a look at stage one, the review stage, or what some might call the awareness or consideration stage, now we have three main leading factors on why applicants might turn away here. The first one is visibility. This is usually a reach issue, and I won't get too much into this today because my focus is more on how to use strategic communications and enablement materials to improve certain metrics, but this is all about advertising. How and where you're doing that, whether you found the right channel, optimizing your level of spend, potentially partnering with recruiters, and so on to improve your visibility. Second one is friction in process to apply. I already spoke a little bit about this, but I will give an often happening example that I hear a lot from other customers as well. Application forms that request resume uploads. Then ask the user to fill out the same information manually in a field. This is really, user unfriendly, and it takes a lot of time and frustration. Of course, if you're using AI-enabled ATS to help with this, it's less of a problem. but the general rule of thumb when it comes to digital friction of any kind, the more steps, the more tabs, screens, or actions you need to take, the higher the process leaking rate. Some of you might not see this as a bad thing. Having a higher bar to application means less irrelevant or unqualified candidates coming through. But as with anything, you need to strike a balance. You don't want to leave the next net too wide. If the barrier to application is too high, you will lose everyone, the good and the bad ones. The third one is a low page view to application rate. So people are basically seeing your listing, but not really following through. So this is where you can make some really small, impactful tweaks without excessive cost. The simple one is listing optimization. Is the listing too long? Is the listing too short? Is the language too complex? Most candidates skim and go straight to the experience section, so make sure you're optimizing this accordingly. The other one is candidate experience optimization. Other than compensation, what is their incentive to apply? What makes this role or your company really competitive? And I always share an example with clients on where you can really stand out. Shoot some employee-generated content. Film a live in the day clip where someone in the role today runs through typical daily responsibilities. Go to your office, go to the store, go to the floor, basically, or to the truck. Be as creative as you want. And this doesn't need to be a high budget thing. You can simply use a smartphone and just buy a mic for a few dollars on Amazon. And you can, for example, use CapCut or any other similar software tools to stitch the video together. It might take a few hours to create, but customers and their employees are always responding great to it. I always also share with my customers bonus points if you're using a real employee and a real location. It's meant to feel relatable and a little less polished. A fly on the wall style video that sets expectations and builds affinity for the role with your company, that's recommended. And I can almost guarantee that none of your competitors are doing something like this. So it really stands out. Next one, the interview stage. So candidates pass the screening, but then goes quiet, or they never show or never book the interview in the first place. Again, the reasons influencing this could be multiple things. A few examples are they might be uncertain about something pertaining in the process, or their perception has changed post-application. They might be less tech savvy. Obviously, if you're hiring for an IT role, it would be a bit concerning, but there are a lot of roles that are less tech savvy, might be, for example, a trucking logistic company, older queuing workforce, etc. And then the story might be completely different. Or they have received a competing interview invitation. So regardless of the root cause, all of these change the same thing, a candidate's motivation to act. Some are more addressable than others, but if their behavior is rooted in lack of information or a change of perception, then there are a few things you can do. First of all, make sure your post-application comms are smooth and seamless. Make sure your email automations are set up and working. For example, ensuring your post-application acknowledgement email isn't going to spam boxes. After a week of silence, 34% of candidates assume they've been ghosted. The second one, add one element that makes the experience memorable. This drastically improves your competitiveness. It can be equipping and empowering them informationally. For example, if people are clicking into the interview scheduling email and not scheduling, just send out a short screen recording that shows them how. Or like with the review stage, leverage your employer brand standout. Tweak your post-application acknowledgement email so that it has character rather than reads as generic. I showed already an example on the screen here. So you can provide them with a short video that outlines interview expectations, including information like how to get into the building or where to wait, how to park. Like I said at the last stage, use actual employees in this filming. Maybe the member of your TA team that tends to interview would like to join. I mean, you can get creative. There can be overlap between these two things. You can at once equip them with relevant information while being memorable. The very best optimization actually achieves both of these things. Let's go to the third stage. Now, this one is less about mitigating drop-off or dropout. It's more about reducing delays. Or, of course, people can still turn on out of the funnel of the offer stage, but the lower down the funnel you get, the higher the retention rate tends to be. So this stage is less about convincing. It's more about the practical logistics. At the offer stage, we're optimizing for speed. The time lost is usually always due to failure to communicate or miscommunications of vital employment-related information, or the information might have been lost in transit. So you should be able to identify the points of friction fairly easily. If you're a one-person TA team, for example, you might already know them on top of your head. If you have a few of them, feel free to add them in the chat as well, because we can all learn from each other here. Maybe some of you have experienced that you have the 3 repeated questions you always get, or you find yourself writing the repetitive responses to candidates via email. You might have a FAQ ready. This is where you should start and reverse engineer. The goal is to proactively enable before the questions gets asked or the delay causing mistake happens. For example, one of the things that one of my clients shared before is that people kept showing up with missing essential documentation, throwing their start day out. Super annoying for the employer itself, but also for the new hire. So what they're doing right now is you can create a 2-minute piece of content that is super simply, visually, and shows them what to leave behind versus what to bring with them. The less text heavy, the better. The idea is to inform them by showing in the least amount of time. And finally, the onboarding stage, or rather pre-boarding stage. So the offer has been accepted and they are due to start. The issues you could run into a few following options. People simply doesn't show up. This is less of an issue for full-time corporate roles maybe, but more usual among seasonal retail workers or holiday workers. And high no-show rates during the first week of Christmas is not what any retail manager wants to be dealing with. Another thing could be people are slower to hit the ground than the business would like, or employee turnover within the first month. It's too high. Thank you for also sharing that in the chat. So I think this one will be perfect to try out for you. Employee turnover is one of the main topics that I'm talking with clients as well. Unsurprisingly, this one is really high in the gig economy, but also affects corporate rules more than you might think. So what can you do here? I think it's again a combination of a few of the things we've already mentioned. Build affinity with your company via unique employer brand activations and proactively empower them with information. Kadian found that a pre-boarding portal with paperwork and welcome videos reduced first-day churn by 15%. That's a great number. So instill a sense of belonging. You can go high level, lead with a welcome message from the CEO. This could be a great unifying new hire experience around your workplace values and aligning them with your mission, so they feel really part of the fabric from the start. Another thing could be preparing them for the first day. You can send information about the dress code, what time you want them to show up, what time your staff takes lunch, or sharing a sitemap with them so they don't get lost. Bonus, again, if this is interactive and they can click on different areas to learn more, or if you use your own employees for this. There is a balance here in information sharing that you need to get right for your business. Too much information might overwhelm them, especially if they haven't started with the first day. Cognitive overload reduces memory retention, but also too little information and they will feel set up to fail. So the best onboarding strategy, drip feeds the right content at the same or at the right time. So just an example to call retail again, they will probably need to know how to operate your point of sale system. Don't send an explainer video on operating the POS system ahead of their first day. This type of equipment-based upskilling is thought best by manager or peer shadowing in person on site. And honestly, it's also not the best and most fun content to receive before you started. Instead, do tell them when you need them to arrive and share an agenda for the first day, dress code, etc. A line item on this agenda might be operating our POS system. And speaking quickly about peer shadowing, from my perspective, peer-to-peer learning is the biggest and untapped resource available to companies at the moment. And then another tip is understand new hire motivation. If you're in the gig economy, people just want to start earning as much and as fast as possible. So upskill them on your search pricing. Be clear on how it is not okay to act with customer or how you can delight one, so they can build a good rating faster. Set them up in a way that is tailored to their number one goal, however that applies to that specific role. And of course, it might be different in another section, but of course, or another sector, but of course, new hire motivation, keep that as central. So a lot of talking, a little bit of a recap. What within the hiring process does it have the ability to influence? Speaking from a KPIs perspective, what you will see if you optimize the whole funnel is more capable new hires, reduced role anxiety, less time spent on admin for managers. But also on the right side, TA teams will see things like quicker time to hire, fewer support tickets, and less funnel drop off. So what you're most interested in will vary based on your role. Hiring managers will be very grateful for new hires that are confident, show up raring to go, and seem bought into the brand from day one. TA teams goals might be a little bit more like, if I change email one in this way, how much faster do applicants book in follow-ups? It goes without saying, of course, both are so important and one necessitates the other. So a great candidate experience, which largely sits with TA, equals exceptional new hires. And if anyone's rolled out any successful or fruitful funnel tweaks lately, let us know what you did and what the result was. The group would love to hear from you, and I'm as well. I always love and hear from others. So please share in the chat. I want this to be as beneficial as possible for anyone. I will take a quick moment to see if there's anything new in the chat. Questions, I will definitely go back to the question at the end when we have a question moment. So thank you, Alex, for sharing that one. Let's move on. Now, before we get into the questions, I will briefly address who we are. I've mentioned this a little bit throughout the session already, but I would love to touch base a little bit more on how we work with Workday to support our shared customers. So some of you might be familiar with eduMe, but for the ones who aren't, eduMe isn't a traditional training tool, but a frontline enablement platform that is purpose-built to ensure consistent execution among distributed teams. When we say frontline, we mean the people who power day-to-day operations on site, on the floor, who work shifts, rather than behind the desk. So these teams don't need long form courses, but timely, role-specific guidance that helps them complete tasks at hand and perform at the moment. And what makes us unique is that we're the only Platinum Workday certified partner that fills this niche and serves this demographic with bite-sized, visually engaging, interactive content like social media style content. What we as eduMe strive for with our customers is going beyond training completion to really move the needle on those operational metrics. Not just allow them to say, hey, great, we have 75% training completion rates, but really empower them to drive consistent and safe frontline performance across every role, shift, and location, and to see that reflected in the data and department KPIs. Whether it's reduction or site safety incidents or in the volume of support tickets received, or even the NPS score, this can be a lot of things. And that's also what I really love about working with the customers, always taking a look at those business impact and metrics. I won't get too heavy into the under the hood techie aspect of our integration with Workday Recruiting today, but essentially, after a one-time sync is set up between Workday and eduMe, candidates' data will be pulled over into eduMe automatically. So no manual segmentation, user provisioning, or list manipulation, just live data reflected in both systems, so you can get the right guidance to the right candidates with ease. Of course, since candidates aren't in the Workday yet, in that early stage, and can only be contacted via external channels, we can reach them by SMS or email. You can send interactive videos like a welcome message, like indeed what type of clothing to wear. On any candidate stage, you can be creative. And when they click on that associated link, they will be taken straight into that piece of content. No login passwords, no account setup. So it's totally frictionless and feels like an organic extension of the hiring experience. As for impact, that interaction data is then sent into eduMe, and then with the trackable by stage, role, and location. So you can easily report on the data that you send out as well. To bring this a little bit back to life, I want to speak a little bit about one of my clients, Southeastern Fried Lights, a customer of mine, and I was only speaking to this customer recently, so it's kind of hot off the press, and I'm super excited about this. They're a family-owned trucking company focusing on next-day delivery. So this is a frontline heavy environment, a lot of drivers, dock workers, fleet technicians, so where people really get into focus to get into productivity quickly, safely, and reducing early stage turnover really matters. So the turnover was a really big thing for this client as well. Their use case sits right at the end of the funnel, post-offer, pre-boarding phase, where you're trying to move someone from accepted offer to day one, ready to start. As we've discussed, this is a critical fissure point for securing that longer-term buy-in by creating a sense of belonging that mitigates early turnover. So Southeastern is very people-first. Their workforce is at the heart of their success, the true backbone of the company, as they put it themselves. And they want to communicate this as soon as possible to the new hires as well. The goal of this pre-boarding is to induct new hires into this environment, make them feel a key part of the whole organization before they've even set a foot onto the site. So to do this, to communicate this in a powerful way, the company felt that it's important to have candidates hear from the CEO directly about these values. So they will be recording a message from the CEO and being sent out before the first day even started, with this message to show the culture of the company and that they're part of this organization, and kind of that welcoming feeling that they're one of them. So embedding this at this stage also means that everyone gets the same message at the same point. It doesn't get lost in transit, and it unburdens managers or peers having to do this all at the first day, where usually this day is already overloaded and packed with new information. So what Southeastern will be doing after the message from the CEO is they will be sending out first day logistics content. What to wear, where to wait, where can you park, what is the planning for that day, who will be your manager, these kind of information. And Southeastern will help their new hires by sharing instructions in an exciting way that really helps with anxiety, and also that managers aren't left responding to the same questions from multiple individuals via email. So at the end, the combination of these content types at the point they're delivered means that Southeastern will have employees that walk in confidence, and they are happy to join that organization as the right place and ready to start working faster. So this is really one part of the power of the integration with Workday and eduMe. We have much more stories on our website. So if you want to read them, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen. It should take you to the whole batch if you're interested to learn more. Also good to know, we spend most of our time talking about the hiring funnel, and while eduMe can be flexible by embedded at any hiring stage in Workday Recruiting, so review, interview, offer, etc. But that's just the entry point. Our mission is to enable employees across their full life cycle, from those first weeks and months all the way to driving the standard of day-to-day performance provision of ongoing learning journeys, and supporting role transitions or trainings. So if any of you on the call are using Workday Learning, I want also to flag that we are embedded there as well. And this is also where most customers unlock the full power of our integration because it offers ongoing support. I saw already a question in the chat, so thank you, Alex. Has there been a specific tool or process change that has helped you to optimize interview stage and scheduling? Great question. I personally know, but definitely this is something that we can follow up on with maybe a few names that other clients are using, or that I can check with them. So happy to follow up after the meeting with you, Alex. Are there any other questions for today? All right, I don't see any new questions coming in. Even if you have any questions after this session, you can always reach out to the Workday team, and then we can always follow up after this presentation. So that's that for today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining today. I have included 2 different QR codes on the screen. So if you want to know more about today's topic and our integration, you can scan the QR code on the left for a short video on how our Workday recruiting integration works. And then on the right side, we have a QR code that leads to a demo experience that showcases eduMe's key features and lets you play with the product in a way how your end user or employee would experience it. So it's not the admin side, it's really from that employee experience. It has some super excited stuff though, like our AI functionality, where you can interact with our AI teammates that support frontline workers in task execution, returning answers to their specific in-the-moment questions in seconds. As well as that the team let me know that they have just rolled out 2 of our newest features, where one of them being AI pathways that supports personalized learning experiences to this demo preview. So if you're in any way curious or interested, I would definitely recommend scan the QR code. And then if you have any questions, I would love to hear from them. But for now, if there are not any other questions or anything else, then thank you so much for joining for today. And thank you for having me. It was a pleasure having you all here today with me, and hopefully see you the next time. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. I will hand it over back to Workday. Oh, let me see if there's anything in the chat. Yeah, we can definitely follow up, Carrie, with the presentation to be emailed to you. No problem at all. If anyone else would like to have any data or presentations, just also feel free to ask in the chat, and we can all follow up with you. And if anything is happening or any questions when I left the stage already, then of course the Workday people are happy to help and follow up here. So thank you all for today, and have a wonderful rest of your own. Bye-bye.